Oh, it says you are live.
Cool. Oh yeah, I see the live in the corner. Hey, all. How are you?
Hey,
My name is Jordan from Without Bounds. Most days.
hey, y'all. Morgan from Iamthesol. We are here just shooting the breeze today, talking about quite a few things, but I think we're mostly just going to start with stuff that we've been
Before we
reading
before we
on.
do, let's just sorry to cut your flow there, homie. And you're giving the best layout ever for this call, but I just want to make sure that everything is functioning well. So I'm going to pull up my YouTube here on my phone just to make sure all is
That
well in
is
the world
very
of
reasonable.
live.
That
Just
is
saying.
reasonable.
Just saying. All right, so I see it live on my thing. Look at that.
I
Oh my
see. Yeah,
god. All right, so I'm going to
both
hit
of
it.
us. There you go. Yeah, I see both of ours actually. That's nice.
And it's coming in.
Yep. Yeah, I see both of ours actually. That's nice.
And it's coming in. Oh yeah. No, yeah, we're good to go. We're golden. We're golden, people. We're a minute in, we're already golden. This is amazing.
Look at that. What is interesting though is I don't think we can see anything about the chat or anything from here as it's currently set up.
Yeah, I think we'd have to be on we'd have to be so I see this view on YouTube button on the right. I know, sorry people that this is going to be like something that you have to sit through.
Yeah,
So it is what it is. Um
this
this
is
is
still
what it
us
is.
just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Masters of
So,
many things,
sorry,
but YouTube not yet. StreamYard not yet.
what was the button on the right?
Do you see it says view on YouTube? Oh no, what you have to do is you click the little thing in the corner, your little icon,
Okay.
and then it should give you a drop down. Do
I'll
you
be
see
on
view
YouTube.
on?
There we go. I
Yeah.
see. Yeah. Yes.
I'm not gonna click it, so you let me know what happens.
Oh God, I have to mute it.
Oh,
Yes, it works. You can see it. We can see the live chat.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of
you
us should
basically
probably
get to
keep it
see it
open.
from your, yeah, you get to see it from your, yeah, who's watching or whatever. So
Oh,
there's just,
is that a Mia? Is
that
that a
is a
Mia
Mia.
right there? Oh my
Mia
goodness.
already has showed up.
She's like,
We
I
already
hear
have a
you went
Mia.
live.
I'm here already. Yeah. I have a
Well,
feeling that this is going to be a groupie kitty.
here, let's see. Let's see if I can pull this off without disrupting them or upsetting them. No, don't get upset, Mars. I'm just lifting it. No, don't get upset. Ah, it's already failed. Never mind. I was gonna show this amazing, cute scene of my cats, but apparently not today.
Yeah, I did have this nice lighting setup that worked well, and then she just decided to immediately be in the light, which is just great.
Yeah.
Like if I move her, look at that. If I move her, the light is better. And then she stands up, and there's no light, and then there's light. Oh God, gotta love cats. Okay,
Yeah.
so
If you don't love cats, all is forgiven.
no, no, gotta love cats. I'm just kidding.
It's like actually.
Actually, no, no, no. So I'll tell you one thing I started watching, but it was an interesting sort of maybe jumping off point. I don't want to call anybody out or anything, but it was a video about the dangers from a neuroscientist perspective of meditation. The
Dun, dun,
dangers,
dun.
and obviously it was taken from a perspective that hey, there's all these cases that they try to reference. So basically, people, I don't know, the way that I almost look at it was that it was a series of stories about people who had failed at various different parts of the hero's journey, of the spiritual journey, spiritual development, all those things. And it was people who, for example, were exposed to initiatory ideas like oneness, and then take what I would typically refer to as sort of a Luciferian approach, which is I am God, and therefore do what thou wilt, and all other people be damned, basically.
I could jump out of
Um,
this window and land in this bush without breaking anything. Wow.
I mean, I think that's probably the more delusional way one can take it, but also, the potential of that type of stuff, obviously, to lead to more of the negative types of personality disorders and such. So, I think that it is fair to represent that there are, some dangers to a self-development journey, but the answer to those dangers is the self-development journey. And so it's interesting. I just wanted to point out that, there's this,
paradox.
If you fail at the journey, bad things might happen. But if you don't take the journey, bad things happen.
That's inevitable.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think any journey has, the peaks and valleys. And when you're in the valleys, sometimes you feel it more than others, because like a valley might be over here, but then another valley on your journey might be over here. And it's like when you're in that low of lows, some call it the rock bottom, like you might be fragile. And, I myself have been fragile in those states when you're having spiritually expansive or just things that blow your mind and like make you have to reevaluate, like what am I capable of experiencing. And when you're in that fragile state, I would say that having done the groundwork, having put in the time to meditate, I go into those places and I'm much less scared, you could say, or much less unwilling to go to those places, because having done the deep work of the soul, let's say, it gives you the tone, let's say, of the spirit, but it also gives you, the shield of the spirit. And like, I don't know, I don't know what it is that you were watching, you don't have to call them out. It's totally kosher there. But like, I've especially there's a book called Altered Traits, and they talk about how, are there contraindications to meditation? Are there contraindications? Contraindication being, should you not do this if, XYZ, like don't take this heart medication if you have heart problems. I don't know, something like that. All the things about like being pregnant, blah, blah, blah. So like, right. Obviously, I think pregnant women, I'll correct myself there, can totally have babies. I mean, totally meditate. I'm sorry, can totally meditate. Putting that, funny one aside, I don't know. Like, are there people who can't sit, because they can't focus, or they're like, all I do is I sit here and I just have thoughts that come all the time and it's uncomfortable to be with my thoughts. And it's like, well, don't stop there. But it might be too loud in someone's head. I don't know.
I think it was, I guess my point was, every example of a bad outcome that they referenced, for what it's worth, could be viewed in the light of a failure to progress further in the spiritual journey.
Like,
one thing,
the stopping stone and not the stepping stone.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, you can view the hero's journey as an eternal cycle, certainly, but there is a progression. And I think that there's certainly an idea in our culture that essentially you can, everybody's naturally seeking some form of homeostasis in some form or another. And a lot of the way that actually materializes is in some form of really crystallization of thought that, or types of thought, that sort of get you stuck mentally in a particular way. And I know that that's one of the big things that comes with aging, and, just hard experiences as well. Trauma really is one of the most, say, effective in a not good way at, crystallizing people's reactions and perspectives to things.
Yeah, especially if you haven't faced it or dealt with it, right?
It is, however, on the note of things that they brought up that were problematic in their light, was bringing up traumatic experiences from the past. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's how you get through those things. It's, again, it's one of those things where I think there's a valid point to be made. And the point is, when you start the journey of self-development, don't stop, right? When you stop, keep going. And realistically, whether people acknowledge that that's what they're doing or not, I'm broadly of the opinion that you keep developing or you die. Or at least you're working towards death. If you're not developing, what are you doing, right? Everything's good. You've reached the pinnacle of life and now everything's wonderful. So we're just going to stay there. That's not how life works.
Yeah, I'm just taking notes here. So that I can maybe circle back on stuff.
Well, that was about all I had. So circle.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Circle back.
this is why I really love, and if, for anyone who tunes in, whether you're watching this now or later, it's a great candy, by the way, now and later's. Anyway, Michael Singer, I've sent you some of his stuff. I know Jimmy on our team here at Without Bounds is a huge proponent of Michael Singer's work. Untethered Soul, for those who are uninitiate. And Singer would be the first one to say, "Oh, you're bothered? Things are bothering you? Great, you're on the right track. Pay attention to why you're such bothered by the things that bother you, and maybe you'll eventually find your way to being untethered, unbothered." Of course, there's like a whole like approach that Singer offers in that domain, but to your point, you must keep going, because this is it's a clear indication that your internal system is saying, hey, like, this needs our attention. This needs our attention. It deserves and is warranted our attention, not to give it power to feed it, but to, take your consciousness like a magnifying glass and just burn the hole in the leaf that is your trauma. Because unless we bring it into the light, we cannot starve it, starving the wolf, starving it of the thing that makes it so traumatic to relive, to remember. We've got to break some disconnect here. I'll get my markers out. If there's our favorite symbol, one of them up there, totally top 5 favorite. You've got thought, you got feeling, if I can spell feeling, and then you've got memory. The memory is obviously the trauma aspect of it. If you remember something and it stirs a thorough feeling of discomfort, distress, and if not panic, it's also connected to thoughts that you're having simultaneously with it about the memory. So it's like, where can we break the link in this chain, essentially, this triangle? That's kind of where I'm at. Because if you can establish this and the connections to your trauma, what feelings and what thoughts either precipitate or are downstream of said memory, I'd say you'd be on your way in your spiritual journey. You'd be on your way to healing, especially, is really what it comes down to. The Enneagram.
One of the things
Another
I wanted
favorite
to point
shape.
out,
Just saying. Top 5 favorite shapes.
Same three. It's just image versus memory, right? Because what is image?
Okay, yeah, no, that might be a totally worthy update. Image.
I mean, I think it's similar, right? It's got some nuance to it, but at the end of the day, romance is heavily something that is both image related but also memory related, right? Although that picture's not going to work, but you get the premise.
Yeah, but to your other point though, it's like this kind of gives me pause, because it's like continuous growth in one specific direction is also known as Cancer. And the idea is that you, as a beautiful living being in this co-creative world with all that is, have various potentials, have different patterns that can be expressed and nudged on, so that they're not all growing simultaneously. Some of them are in a decay state, some of them are in a growth state. And the idea is, in your spiritual journey, can you knock on the specific doors that let things balance, if that makes sense? Simulated growth, but also managed decay and decline.
Fair. Actually, I'm going to go back to the Enneagram thing, I think, here. It is maybe worth touching on as well that maybe some of how you go about that is through a recognition that
awareness,
an awareness that ultimately there is a flow of energy that is helpful, that is integrative, and there's also a direction that from wherever your perspective is, that is more negative. And so, yeah, exactly, disintegrative, exactly. So, for example, for myself, being a 5 with a shadow of a 4, it is far more healthy for me to lean towards the 8, which would be basically being more embodied, trusting in the universe. That's what I am supposed to be doing. And if I do that, then I have a lot of success in life. If, however, I lean more towards being, say, a purveyor of good things in life, that's really focused almost a little bit of a selfish sort of a vibe, which is what that would be for me, then that is a very disintegrative direction to take the energy. And so
to pause you for a second, not to get you lost in there,
Sure.
I get, as a last note, that is the disintegration point for you. From a broad view, for anyone who has no idea what the Enneagram is, this is like a personality wheel that each human falls on in one position along the wheel, Ennea, meaning 9. So it's a 9-pointed star, a 9-pointed wheel. Wherever you are, Morgan was generous enough to share that he's a 5. I am personally a 9, as far as I know. But I totally recommend, if you haven't checked out what the Enneagram is, Wikipedia's got a wicked chart that you can go through that's really elevating to learn about. Just wanted to put that out there. Take personality tests. I'm sure all of you have done stuff like the Ocean, the Big 5 personality test, or the INFJ, that other one. Which one is that? I keep forgetting.
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs. I knew it had like a hyphen with 2 names. Myers-Briggs. But yeah, just wanted to provide that context for you, dear viewer. Carry on.
Yeah, I prefer to just give it to you straight, no context at all.
Yeah.
No, I joke. However, that is actually sort of a good point, because there is a lot to the Enneagram. It's more than just a personality type, but I think that the point is that you can break it into multiple different sets of 3s. So this is the one that we've sort of talked on now, which is really just fear, anger, and image. But it is important to recognize that these are sort of the motivating characteristics that are positive and negative, integrative and disintegrative for each of the various different types of people. You may find yourself in one of these categories, or you will, if you study it, find yourself in one of these categories more than others. And like I said, there's a lot to it, but I think that the big point is that there should be a broad natural understanding that there is a healthy direction to move and an unhealthy direction to move, from a direction of where you are. And so it's not always these types of traits are always better. These types of it depends on where you are, depends on who you are, depends on your situation.
Yeah.
I have a
nailed it. I mean, because at the end of the day, like if we take, the same kind of example that you painted there. So being a 9, being the peacemaker, the mediator, it's like I told you about this, in my upbringing, I was steeped in an environment of wrath, let's just call it. And, growing up in a wrathful environment meant having to nudge and urge the potentials within me that would keep myself stable and sane, but also find a deeper place on the inside of a storm. Like, I don't know if you want to call it the eye of the storm, but like finding a place of peace, and to be from a place so that you could share it with others. So for me, though, I think it's leaning into the 3 is really what my kind of mode of operation has to be, where I practice things, I develop mastery in that direction, and I'm able to be the bigger peacemaker by having performed, but by having been a solid performer in those directions, versus the 6 leaning is like seeing more devil's advocate kind of a deal, and like, not being willing to take a side, not being willing to I don't know, have more. I'm kind of at a loss for words with the 6 in that regard, and how it might be the more unhealthy pattern of energy. But like I think 8.
I can answer a little bit there. Maybe the 6.
Educate me.
6. So 6 is broadly, it's fear. Sorry, I'm being mauled by this cat here. So from what I have read and studied about the Enneagram, there's actually an estimate that something like 50% of people are 6s in their broad personality types, which is just
that's all I need to know. It's like, don't be like everyone else. Easy, done. Got that under control.
It's in particular, it's sort of the vibe of the kind of person that needs to know, that needs to believe in some sort of a system that they're a part of. You know what I mean? It's the kind of people that would be the questioners in the Inquisition. Let's put it that way.
Oh, goodness
So,
gracious.
but broadly, a lot of that has to do with the motivation being centered around the fear archetype. And that's not to say that sixes are entirely bad. You need that kind of people in your society. But I'm not doing justice for the upside there. Let's say that. Because, yeah, I'm not a master of the Enneagram. I'm a master at looking at systems for myself. And that's, this is one of those systems where I really dived in heavily to my stuff, a little bit less so your stuff, and then obviously a little bit less so all the rest of the stuff. However, it is a system that I highly encourage anybody to get into.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge proponent of it too. And you know, it's funny because you think you know yourself, you think you have an understanding of, you know, what you need to know to operate effectively and, you know, live true to your purpose and conduct yourself in a meaningful way that is leading you to where it is that you envision. That said, you know, you introducing me to the Enneagram, it was like, oh, of course, I don't know aspects of myself or haven't thought about these aspects of myself for a long time to really understand how much they drive who I am today and how to even get more out of, you know, the architecture of my personality and the architecture of my nature, let's just say. Always discovering, ever discovering, forever student here. So that's really what it comes down to for me and why I love the Enneagram.
I actually found something new myself this morning.
Of course.
Just, it was funny.
What do I have to get into now, Morgan?
So I just dived into some of the Mayan astrology stuff a little bit. And there's some, okay, so here, let me just share my screen. I'll just show you what I did because I don't have any answers here, but this is fun. So let me present, share screen, Mayan Oracle, boom. Okay, so.
Oh, this reminds me of human design, kind of. At least
it is very human design vibey. So I'll put my cell phone. It's not secure.
Oh, no.
So apparently, according to this, I'm a red planetary dragon.
Well, dragon, Leo. Yeah, that makes sense.
White Northern Castle of Crossing, Earth Family Cardinal, Clan Fire. So the fire I get. I perfect in order to nurture, producing being. I seal the input of birth with the planetary tone of manifestation. I am guided by the power of universal water. Now, particularly for myself, because I'm Leo Sun, Cancer Moon, Cancer Rising, the guided by power of universal water fits freaking perfectly. From a human design perspective, I'm a manifesting generator. And so the manifesting and energy there is hilarious.
It's very nuanced. Very cool.
It is. It's surprisingly nuanced for what it is. Yeah, that was kind of what I got from there. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it, and I will say that I'm still like, I know that this symbol is supposed to be related to me, which Return of the Lords of the Black and Red. I mean, if you just kind of look at this picture, there's only a few places that maybe you wouldn't want to be. It's like maybe this one, and then this doesn't look super happy either, you know? Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it's the Baktun of the Lords of the Red and Black. I'm sorry. That was the reference there, but I'm sure I'm reading it wrong. But anyway, I thought that was just kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what kind of system they're using and like how it maps onto like, what do we call the stuff we study? The sidereal system, I guess, or like, is this like a difference between like tropic and like tropical and like something else? I know it's not Vedic.
No, this is a lot of this is just like Mayan calendar. So it's a different counting system. So like they'll have certain systems because this is a combination of multiple. I don't know which ones are which, but you can see that it's like 0, you know, it goes from 0 to 18. This one goes from 0 to 19. This one goes from 1 to 20. And so it's like 20-day cycles broadly that add up. And then they go, you know, that's how the Baktuns were calculated, I guess, or at least Yeah, it's in there. There's 20. There's a 20 in there. Let's say that. That's about as much as I know. We have definitely exhausted my knowledge at this point.
Okay.
On this subject, but it is fun.
You want to run my chart? Let's see what cool things get spat out. I hope it's not like something lame like the when we looked up what was it?
Is this right?
Node the other day.
Is this right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. You are yellow cosmic warrior. Here, I'll let you read it.
Let's see. Blue Western Castle of Burning. Earth family. Cardinal. Clan. Sky. I endure in order to question. Yeah. Yeah, in a nutshell. Transcending fearlessness, I seal the output of intelligence with the cosmic tone of presence. I'm guided by the power of universal fire. That is fucking wicked. I mean, excuse my language. That is freaking wicked. That feels so cool. I'm like, whew, don't flatter me so much, Mayan astrology.
Yeah, no, I will say one of the ones that got me recently was I typed in an X in it. It was I am a cosmic portal gateway, enter me. And I was like, oh, that is.
That is very descriptive and vulgar.
I know, right? Yeah. Oh, I'm being, hello, cat, make up your mind. What are we doing here? Sorry. She's just like, can't decide. She's just strolling. Okay, let me turn this off. So yeah, that was something I ran into. It's fun.
That's pretty cool. No, I would love to obviously take some time to really dig in and like find people who are expert on that and could share the know-hows, because that seems more complicated, but also it might be simpler than we realize. Who knows?
Yeah, it looked pretty complicated.
Yeah, you're like, no, it's pretty fun. It's pretty
I mean, there's different tones. It seems like I like the system. It seems like it has some beauty to it, but in some ways, it seems like it's a similar theme to a lot of these other systems that we also know work.
Do me a favor.
Sort of,
send me whatever you found there.
Yeah, for sure. And just for anyone who is interested, that was found at starroot.com. Starroot.com. That was where I found that. Yeah. All right. What else you got?
Oh, you can post it as a comment, I think, right? Is that how that works?
I just put it in the chat.
Yeah. That looks like it did it. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. What else you got?
What else I got? Well, I am, as you know, which the audience, dramatic irony, but they don't know. I've been studying, unless you've been following me on my channel, I've been studying Walter Russell, and really just imbibing a lot of his various lectures and books that are out there. You were gracious enough to get me the Universal One, which I have been chowing down on, like, at a third grade pace, a third grade reading level, like sounding out the words and just being like, what are this, what is the syllogistic chain that's being painted here? And like, am I like, can I find the resolve within me to begin like thinking in terms of not just metaphysics, but in terms of physics and like how like fields work. And it's like, it is daunting, but it is also illuminating, I would say. And it ties into a lot of stuff that I've already encountered in other ways, but it just puts like that extra layer of metaphysical, is the word simplexity. Like it's simple, but yet not kind of a deal. It's like simple at first from like a first principle standpoint, but then it like immediately complexifies, is the danger of kind of taking on this stuff. And like Universal One is it's poetic in its own way, but like, as you know, I've been also listening to the Divine Iliad and like just kind of repeating some of these aspects of it just over and over to like make sure that I am understanding what it is, or like at least I'm building the framework for how Russell approaches it. And The hard part is that it directly kind of like has key aspects to other systems that I've been learning that are contrasting, but also complementary at times. For me, I guess Russell really helps understand that like this when we say co-create, like this is intentional co-creation, that like if there is a God or whatever we want to call it, the one, the monad, that like the thing that is the one, father, mother, mother, father, the thing, wants to co-create with us and wants us to elevate ourselves that we may co-create and figure out what the process is. And that as someone who has studied manifestation for so long, I continually find that, because there's time to or the perception of an unfolding of sequences in our lives. My understanding is that manifestation also kind of takes on a rhythm of seasonality, let's just say, not just seasonality, but it also requires us unfolding in time, if this makes sense, to do specific things that are deliberate in the co-creative process. So for instance, I've recently kind of re-tinkered my understanding of manifestation such that, I brought this up in personal conversations about forgiveness and the idea that if all is one, it's already like at home in the one, and like the one remains unchanged, perfect in its perfectitude, if we could call it such a thing. And it leads to questions like what is our existence? What is all this? And if it is meant to exist, then it seems like we're meant to take purposeful action in that space, is what Russell's communicating, that we are, the one wants purposeful creators with him. And it's like, okay, I can get down with that. And on the forgiveness note, it's like, Walter Russell says your desires must be balanced. Like if you were going to desire, like you can desire to do harmful things, but know that in its action and unfolding creates disequilibrium that necessitates some sort of course correction by the existence as it unfolds. So therefore, you must balance thy desires. It doesn't mean don't desire. It means desire carefully is I guess the cautionary tale. But desire also framing it such that you also keep in mind the opposite of what it is that you're desiring, and keeping that in mind and surrendering that, as an exercise in your manifestation practices. I digress. That is what I've been studying, and I know it's thick, and I know it's it's winding, but that is
maybe
essentially what I've. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's awesome, dude. A touch of background for folks. Walter Russell has a ton of works that seem to bridge a lot of gaps related to both physics and metaphysics. He was a sculptor, just truly a remarkable person. And a lot of what he wound up writing was a sort of metaphysical physics philosophy that essentially syncretizes everything, right? He had a philosophy, a theory of everything in a true sense, one of the very few that have ever actually existed at that scale. And he also drew lots of really cool pictures that represent how things interact in ways that modern physics still hasn't grappled with a lot of this stuff. And, I'm not here to say that all of it's definitely true, but there's definitely some truth that seems to resonate for me, at least in a lot of what he created, which is part of the reason I shared it. Yeah. So definitely Walter Russell, very, very impactful. And yeah, sorry, go ahead. Or you were going to go with that?
No, I'm just listening humbly. I think you're.
I don't know that I would say I'm the expert.
No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, my challenge is one, not knowing if, our modern physics has charted the course that he's laid out, so to speak. And if they've done so, if they've laid it out in ways that are less tangible for me or less approachable, let's just say. And I think Russell so far is approachable, complicated in its brilliance and craziness at times. So like, I guess my challenge is to figure out how to stress test what he's described that actually pans out, that works, and that is depicting things in a way that leads me to discover new things, but also leads me to co-create more responsibly and lets me see for myself how I can participate in that and stress test it and see, for all who are watching and living a life, like, hey, is this the real? Is this the truth of truths?
So one of these things that's part of Russell's, say, epiphany, I think is maybe the way to phrase it. He had what essentially amounts to at least one, if not several, divine epiphanies that led to the bulk of his life's work, as I understand it. And I think that as I look at it, for what it's worth, when you open the Universal One, the first picture you see is this. I think he may have just been literally given this whole thing in one picture all at once, and he spent the rest of his life trying to communicate it to the rest of us in various different ways, because it's a circle, but it's also a spiral, and it's an eternal spiral that the end is the beginning, and it's sort of the recognition that you and the universe are mirrors for one another that don't need a mirror, right? We are reflections of the universe that doesn't need a mirror, and vice versa. And yeah, pretty cool, I think, as far as an example of unfolding that. For example, there is a periodic table aspect to this, as you can see by some of these elementary things. If you were to unfold this into a spiral, it looks like this. And so this is, now granted, this is actually cut partway through, so don't take it as perfect. But the point is that there is a spiral that he is essentially saying that light at higher and higher energies is what we perceive to be the periodic table and material matter. So that the basis of everything is fundamentally light. That's one of the key things that he has.
So one of the things that's tripping me up, if you can leave this up, is just
I closed it. Sorry, hold on one second.
I'm curious how you've been processing this, and it might not be something that's front of mind for you, but do you mind pulling it back up?
Yeah, I got to figure out where it is. Here it is.
Okay,
there you go.
Just that, as Walter Russell explains in Universal One, that man must think in light, man must turn inward and think in the higher octaves. So I look at this, and it's like each section essentially that goes past one of those big black dots is an octave. And there are 10 octaves, Walter Russell says. And for me, it's like looking at the higher octaves, it's like, is he telling me to think like uranium? Like, what is he telling me there? Like, think in the higher octaves. I'm like, what do you even mean, homie? Like, think in terms of, he named one of them Boston is one of them. It's just hysterical. So it's like,
maybe we're touching here is stuff that's actually been measured starts with hydrogen. So hydrogen is here, right, on his chart. So he's got all this other crap between hydrogen and helium. All this other stuff is stuff that hasn't been measured. It has.
I don't know. It's just a different name, and it's like when they smash stuff in the colliders, it's like, and things exist for like moments. And they start naming all these things, and they call them particles, etc. It's like it could be like that. Is my guess.
I mean, I think it's simply something that it's almost the ask is to take it on faith. Because I will say I've studied enough that I struggle how you go from so a hydrogen atom, for example. What is less than a hydrogen atom? It's literally the smallest one thing, right?
Yeah.
That's where, in terms of a manifest reality, I don't know how much of this is a direct reflection of that, other than the things that we can obviously measure. So the answer is a fair chunk of it. But for those things that are not in our known manifested reality, I don't know if I feel like some of this is telling you to go look in certain areas for certain things, but then other parts of it may be more like, say, like decimals almost, that only get materialized when you reach the whole number. So it's, like 1.2 of something, that there can only be 1 or 0 at the end of the day, is going to be a 1, right? I'm not explaining it well, but I think the gist of it is that I don't know what some of these things are, and yeah. So let's take that on the face, right? That there's some of this stuff that some people would just look at this and be like, well, that's total crap, because I don't know what any of that is. And that's a fair perspective if you want to take that perspective. I, however, am more amazed by the fact that there is this type of a pattern that exists in the structure of the periodic table, and this guy's the only one who's talking about it. That I find more interesting because of all the other context that comes after that. Because when you start with, oh, and by the way, I have this alternative theory that is internally consistent, that is powerful by itself, as long as it can then be tested in a lot of the ways that, as long as you can test it. In fact, that the whole concept of as above, so below, as within, so without, fundamentally is taking those things which you can observe and the relationships between them, understanding that the relationships repeat at different scales, and then applying that understanding to the scales that you cannot measure. That's how a lot of what we believe about galaxies and such are understood. Same thing in the quantum side of things, that the things that can't be measured, that can't be seen, can't be observed, you can infer what they might be doing as long as you understand the governing structure of how they relate to, where you are in the energetic system, is how I would phrase that.
Love it. I do have to go to the restroom, so I'm gonna just.
Actually, I was gonna suggest. I mean, I didn't really have much else to cover today. I don't know about you. I
mean, I'm happy to just shoot the such. You know what? I'm not attached, but I definitely need to go to the bathroom first before we continue, at least.
I think for going live, we probably ought to call it here. And then
how does Joe Rogan?
I don't think people do bathroom breaks. I don't think that's a thing. I think
I've seen people. I mean, I think it's like multiple people, and they just totally go to, like, someone will just totally, like, do one of those and one of those.
So there's some of that, but I think the real answer is you draft videos. That's what Donut does. He's like, I got this thing to show you, and it's like a 3-minute video because I'm time to go to the bathroom and come back. Because he made some produced 3-minute video to put in there, right? And it's like people could do, that's maybe where they do their commercials too.
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm not busy making commercials. No. I feel like, I don't see myself.
Still have to go to the bathroom. It's only getting worse.
All right.
So give me 1 second. I'll be right back. We can continue. Let's continue for a moment.
Let's pause.
Yeah, I'll be RB.
Here he is leaving me by my lonesome. So let's see, what else? We've touched on the Enneagram. We've touched on Walter Russell. What are the recent stuff have I been thinking about? I've been listening to some of The Secret of All Ages again. Just recently started it, but it's typical Manly P. Hall stuff. Very, very, very heavy on the history, right? Which is great. But sometimes it is a little bit difficult listening to Manly, just because he just makes statements of things that it's just like, oh, I guess I'll take that on faith, because there's no receipts, there's no documentation. Sometimes he's like, oh yeah, it was like this in Lemuria, and I'm like, okay. But some of at the same time, that's a book that has, just incredible amounts of wisdom. So anybody who's interested in that book, that's definitely a good place to start. Here, I'll grab my copy. Be right back.
All right. And I'm back.
I didn't actually leave. I was just talking about...
I know.
This book is one that I started recently.
Yeah.
Again.
I'm so like good old 680 pages in. So
I mean, to be fair, I have read the book before.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, he just covers literally everything. Like there we're talking about the I think it's the zodiacal man, applying astrology to the chart showing the relationship between the human body and the exterior universe, for example. Yeah, good luck finding that on your typical YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, to your point,
Uh,
like he's compiled so much stuff that it's like it is challenging to parse through. Like, hey, like you wrote that. For me personally, like it's written in like what, it was published 1929 or something like that, and you're like, wow, some of this stuff, like I didn't know that they were even aware of, like at his time. And like I was
right.
thinking that like some revelations came more recently, but it's like no, people been been done knowing about like Bimini Road and stuff like that, and you're like, whoa, like I had no idea. You know, that's the Atlantis, total pivot there. But just like I'm on the section of the book that relates to the Kabbalah, and it's been really cool for me personally because I studied religion back in college. I minored in it, and like I had a class on Jewish mysticism and like dove into all this stuff. But at the time, I was naively just thinking it was all aliens. So I like would constantly like troll my teacher, and he would just be like, "No, Jordan, it's not about aliens today. Like, can we stay focused?" But just even talking to you the other day about like Kabbalah, and like you sent me some video about like the cube Allah, like, and then like the house of God, or like the cube of God, and like I was thinking like, oh, like the word Kabbalah is in there, and I wonder how that relates to like some of the Sabbatean stuff that like manifested later in Kabbalah's evolution. And I know a lot of this is like really nuanced stuff, so like forgive me if none of this makes sense, but like totally recommend checking out what's it
I'd just like to point out that if you
yeah,
Google cube Allah,
yeah.
which would be a way to phrase Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, if you cube Allah, the first thing that pops up is the Kaaba, which is not Jewish. This would be Islamic.
Well, there was the point
So
in the Jewish mystic like history where basically in order to survive they became like they converted. I forgot who specifically converted to Islam to like basically keep things preserved. But like
I
this,
guess
if all of this is Robert Sepper's work, like go check out is that what his channel's called? Just Robert Sepper? I forget. Um, but like all of it's there, man. Like go listen to some of his content. It's out there. It's convoluted, but like it gives you a historical reframing. Let's just say that. But back
just
to
for
Manly.
clarity though, for folks, before manly. Okay, so cube Allah, right? So the cube God, literally the cube of Allah for
I'm the
Islam.
cube. Put the cube in
I
my
mean, my
chest.
point is that the words
Yeah.
across multiple religions stay kind of the same thing. And that's important because, when you look at, say, Kabbalah,
K
how many
Q.
spellings are there?
It's like
Well, the Hermetic
Hanukkah.
Kabbalah.
Leave it to
There's also
Jews.
the Hermetic
Leave it to
version, right?
us to make a million ways to spell the same thing.
One interesting point, though, is you can recognize one way to look at this is that it is a cube. Or
One
a
ugly looking
hypercube,
cube.
I think. I think it's technically a hypercube. I don't
Yeah.
remember the nuance
Something
there.
like
But the point though is that's like there's the cube symbolism there, that the structure of it is, potentially more than one dimensional, because this really does look like, an axis that makes it three-dimensional, except that there's a complex thing happening at the top, which would be more akin to, again, a sort of unfolded hypercube. I think you can fold this back up into potentially that.
Yeah. So
Which is
yesterday
wild because of the words, right? Sorry, go ahead.
yesterday I was taking a nap, and this is a total diversion, but it's also, we'll weave it back. And I woke up from the nap, and as I don't know about you, but like sometimes as you're verging towards wakefulness, you catch glimpses of things that like are truly out of this world, to say the least. And for me, it was like the way that this is all white, like imagine it was clear. It was like I saw this like white, like sort of rectangle. What are we doing there?
Wrong button.
It
Hit the wrong one. Keep
was
going.
like in my visual field, it was like this white rectangle, and then it had these like rainbow spiraling like gradations. Like, see how these lines are like, but like arranged more in like organized, like spiraling rectangle outflowing from the inner white rectangle. And it just had this like we've talked about this, in our private chats, that like the reality is a crystal, like our reality is a crystal. And this was kind of like the whiteness of like unmanifest, like purity, like shooting out in its crystalline way and just being the manifest reality that we are and that we experience. It's like, I don't know if that makes any sense and depicts anything that like, is meaningful for you, but like it was kind of this like, oh, kind of peek under the hood of life. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think, that's kind of what this is purported to be at the end of the day, right? So we talk about, there is this correlation between the whole cube God thing. That is the religious, in many ways, viewpoint of how to structure, how to understand the structure of God. I'm not here to say that they've got it right or wrong. I think at the same time, it's just worth understanding that it transcends multiple different religious perspectives, different religious viewpoints, right?
1,000%.
And one interesting other thing, I guess, about this is you can also speak of this in a similar sense of the left-hand path, right-hand path, middle path, or middle way. It's not a path, it's the middle way. And I think the nuance is left-hand path would be your, what I would typically refer to as Luciferic, self-serving, I am God mindset, the will to deify yourself. The right-hand path is the, we're all, destitute, dirty, need to be destroyed, using existing structures to grind us down into essentially nothing, seeking that ultimate dissolution or death. That's sort of the right-hand path. It's not truly an ascendant path, but that is how I interpret it. And then you've got the middle path, which is very internal. It's a recognition that you co-create and sort of positioning yourself relative to the divine. I interpret it as a way of not getting caught up in will to power or will to dominion, but instead the will to ascension and transcendence. And that's how I view sort of that middle path, which, I'm sure a lot of people have viewpoints one way or the other about all these things, about whether they're good, bad, etc. But at the end of the day, I think it's still, with any type of perspective, it's worthwhile to be able to take something useful from it, right? Because far be it from me to say that I have the ultimate truth, but I also don't know that I would, expect anyone to be able to say that they have the ultimate truth in this life. So realistically, I think that means that we have to develop the skill set to take information of, say, unknown, you don't know if it's all perfect, et cetera, but you got to be able to develop that sense of what's true for me, what's good for me. And so, for me, I think understanding again, this middle path transcendence thing, and, coming back to meditation being bad, one of the core tenets of how you not tenets, but one of the core methods of how you could find in yourself a middle way to God and divinity is through exactly that act of meditation. It's quieting your mind. It's not getting caught up with any of the predominant sort of energy flows that exist in the everyday external world, but instead finding the calm and the quiet within yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that one worthy call out is that these connecting lines, while it shows you a path that like is directionally up, let's say, it's also showing you that within transcendence is also immanence, meaning the divine is like ever present, let's just say. And it, in some schools of thought, it's the only thing that's ever present. That said, the meditation is like, if you can imagine, what is it like to be in that, like that upper keter, like circle? It's like all that is, all that appears in our reality, it's like just nulled out essentially. And it's like, can you get to the state within you, within a meditative practice, where you can essentially null out the appearances, or like null out like that any appearance is different or qualitatively qualitatively like different than the state of continuity with things, with being purely subjective in your experience and unfolding. Yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Okay, no, I turned off. So I think, well, I think I think we've covered everything that I was hoping. So I don't have really anything specific to cover at this point. I'm out of shit. I'm out. I'm tapped.
I got nothing.
Unless you got
for you.
more. I got nothing for you.
I mean, there's always more. There's always more.
There's always more. Well, why don't we call it for today? I think this is a good initial stream. We know now how the systems work.
We know how the buttons work. Yeah, we got the buttons.
We know how the buttons work. And actually, there's a few things that worked really well here, I think, in terms of like you don't even need to keep YouTube up when you've got StreamYard because you can see the chat in StreamYard, which is super cool. So do me a favor, actually, never mind. I'll do this. I'm going to do this. I just chatted in the YouTube, and it appeared now in the StreamYard. If I type in the StreamYard,
passes it along.
Yeah. So there you go. So we don't even need to have
that. Burrito.
Indeed. All right. Well, why don't we call it here? And then, yeah, we'll have to figure out what we want to touch on next. I've got a few ideas in mind, but definitely going to require a bit of research. So.
Yeah, likewise. Folks and fam, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening and joining us in the Hero's Den. My name again is Jordan from Without Bounds, here to heal, uplift, and empower you, baby.
And I'm Morgan from Iamthesol. Catch y'all next time.
Ciao. Ciao, ciao. Until next time.